Well, hi guys. My name's Christopher Lengel. I am the founder and CEO of Help Me PTSD. And tonight I've got a great show for you guys, okay? We got Audra Rene Weeks with us. She is a certified hypnotherapist. And we're going to dive in and start talking about what these different traumas are. How can we be traumatized? Are we responding to trauma during this virus as a large group of people, all of humanity? Is this a traumatic event? I think it is. I think there's a lot of solutions we can talk about. And without further ado, I want to bring Audra on to our show to just kick this off and let's open the conversation up. So without further ado, Audra, welcome to our Help Me PTSD live stream show.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing as far as who are you and what are you trying to bring to this the amazing life we call in this world?
So I'm Audra, and I am a certified hypnotherapist and a certified energy worker. I do professional nanny work for a living, as well as the holistic healing on the side. I currently am in the process of editing and publishing a book called Moving Mountains, A Hero's Journey. And it is about the traumas that I have experienced in my life and working through those traumas, going through cognitive therapy. I talk about PTSD. I go through a few of the healing sessions and show what cognitive therapy looks like, breaking down the core beliefs and shattering them, rewriting them, and creating new ones that are going to be more applicable and positive to my life. So my hope is that I can maybe be a light in other people's life that are going through their experiences, or people that have not healed from their past traumas, showing them that mountains can be moved, and show them my journey. And there's tons of different ways people can heal, and it's not one size fits all. So I'm going to share my story with the world and hope that I can help people along the way on their journey.
You bring up a good point where it's like, you say you've had a long journey, and a lot of the people I talk to are military first responders. We had Don Perez on last week, and he's a military vet. And, a lot of my battle buddies suffer from PTSD. It might be strange for people to understand that trauma isn't just on the battlefield. It's not. There's trauma off the battlefield. There's other places where we can experience trauma. Do you mind sharing just a little bit of insight so people watching might understand that this PTSD can be experienced, on and off the battlefield? We've got, other people that can have trauma that doesn't have to do with war. What can you talk to me about that?
I think that people tend to believe that it is only associated with people that have experienced war, because I think that people that have experienced war coming back and having some issues to deal with all the trauma that they brought back with them gave the medical field a better idea, or kind of like woke them up to what PTSD is, what was happening on the subconscious level. And I believe that everybody experiences on some level some PTSD. We've all gone through some really hard things in life. And like right now, we're all put in a situation that is very traumatic. And there's probably people that are experiencing PTSD from it. For my own personal self, I've experienced, I had a brother that committed suicide when I was 9 years old. I had a stepfather verbalize his desire to molest me. I was raped when I was 17 in high school. And when I was a little over 20, I had an uncle try to kill me when I was sleeping. So I have definitely experienced PTSD. I have a lot of traumatic response symptoms still. I wouldn't say that I would be diagnosed as having PTSD currently. There's 4 categories that go with PTSD, and you have to have one or more symptoms in each category. And one of the categories is you have involuntary flashbacks, and I don't have that anymore during my waking state. So I technically I'm not considered PTSD, but I do have a lot of traumatic response still.
Right. And thank you for sharing that. You know, it's eye-opening to, you know, one, I'm sorry you ever had to experience that in your life. And, you know, if there's anything that we can do to support you in your healing journey, you know, please let us know. And we would definitely be, you know, willing to help you out in whatever the capacity that means to you. You know, this is the things that motivate me to stand up and do something. You know, earlier today on another show, I was on, not I was on, but producing, you know, this guy went on and we're talking 22 veterans a day kill themselves. Okay. And it's not just veterans. We've got 128 police officers. We've got 100 and some firefighters. And so this trending, the emerging trend of the suicide rate going up and nothing being done is quite terrifying. So when we talk about this next topic, how do we teach people how to respond to trauma? You know, we're in a traumatic event right now as a whole society. You know, this is not just something that affected one little town. You know, it's not like it's tornado, which really sucks. And it was like, oh, but that was in, you know, this one state. This is something that just drastically changed and impacted every single person's life across the whole planet for the most part. And now people are starting to experience some very uncomfortable mental responses. So what is this response to trauma? What did that look like for you? How did you respond to trauma when this first all started happening? How are you responding even now to the trauma that's happening around the globe?
I think that what we're doing right now is really super important. We're talking about it. We're talking about it openly. And I think that that's huge, because I think that society, it's such an uncomfortable conversation to talk about suicide and stuff that nobody wants to talk about it. And it's a tough conversation to have, but we need to talk about it. And also, I think that by talking about it, we're creating a space where other people that are experiencing traumatic response or suicidal thoughts or drug addiction, it gives them permission and says it's okay for you to reach out for help and to talk about what you're going through. I think that there's a stigma around mental health. I think it's getting better because people are starting to openly talk about it more, but there is a stigma around it, and we need to change that. We need to make people feel safe to have the hard conversations. For me, when I went through all the trauma when I was younger, I didn't deal with it. I stuffed it away. I compartmentalized it because I didn't know how to deal with it. And I think, you know, when people are dealing with trauma, they don't understand what their responses are or the PTSD that comes with it. It makes them think that there's something wrong with them. And there isn't anything wrong with them. They're taking a very tough situation that they've been through, and they're trying to make sense of it. And a lot of times the trauma that you go through that follows with PTSD, there's no making sense of that. It's kind of like when you experience the trauma, this shattering happens within you, and you're dealing with a whole bunch of fragmented thoughts and aspects of the actual trauma, trying to make sense of these fragments, putting it into a whole picture. And there's nothing wrong with you. You're trying to mentally understand what happened to you. You're trying to process what happened to you. You're trying to process the emotions that are coming with that, which are very intense. It's a lot of intense things that, you know, we're dealing with when we experience a trauma. So currently, as far as what's going on, in the world now, it has definitely triggered a lot of traumatic response within me. I feel like the isolation part of it is when we're going through PTSD or depression, we tend to isolate ourselves because that's what makes us feel safe. Well, now we're kind of like being forced to isolate, and it's kind of creating a memory of what going through PTSD or traumatic response looks like for us. And that part of that is isolation. And I think that isolation is actually triggering people that have unhealed wounds into thinking that, you know, it's triggering other things besides what's happening with the COVID.
Right. And you know, I want to bring these little slides back up while we have, you know, people watching us and joining us tonight. And it's not to try to make people feel bad. I don't want to make people feel, you know, it's not to try to incite any kind of sadness in you. It's to try to wake people up to the tragedy that is happening in front of our face. It's gotten out of control with the veteran community. As far as it's 22 each day. Okay. It's hard to, you know, imagine that. I didn't think it was real until I had personal friends that didn't make it, that either died from overdose or did end up choosing to kill themselves. And it's terrifying to think we have these other first responders, 228 cops each year. Okay. That's like one every other day. And then to cap that off, we've got 107 firefighters about. That's one every other 2 days. And so you come back to veterans being 22 each day. We already know the VA's failing. We already know that there's an issue that needs to be addressed and taken care of. And we have these other first responders and now even, you know, the general humanity, that this number is starting to climb up. And so I ask all of our viewers all the time, it's like, hey, just share the video. Let's start talking about this. Let's open up the communication on how we can each be a part of that solution in our small group, in our family, in our, you know, our community at home, wherever we're at, wherever we decide to be present. How can we make a difference in our small groups so that way we can see an ultimate macro result? Because it has to start on the individual level. If we don't focus on what I can do or the individual, you know, how can we get ahead of it? So what do you think? What are some ways, you know, as far as how can we avoid this trend in suicide, or how can we start reducing the rate of suicide? Which, by the way, if you knew, more people kill themselves every day than almost people have died from coronavirus in Arizona every day. So I just like to throw that out there because it's interesting. You know, I'm not trying to say the virus isn't real. I'm just saying, let's look at the reaction. We got 22 people that are killing themselves every day, and we've got a virus that could potentially kill you. So which one's more important to fight right now? I think they're both important, right? But, you know, for mental health, this isolation is not good for us. It's not a good pattern of behavior to get in. So how do you get people to not ride the emotional wave? You know, don't ride the emotional tidal wave of when this traumatic events happen, my emotions are all out of whack. I want to act in ways that maybe aren't normal. And how do we avoid that? How do you do that? How do you go to the grocery store and not freak out and start buying more stuff when you see other people doing it? What are some tips and tools that you have developed over the last years of your life to help you not ride the emotional tidal wave?
I would say for me, I've practiced a lot of mindfulness, and in that, whenever I catch myself getting maybe out of control or paranoid thinking or exaggerated thoughts, I remind myself that I'm most likely having a lot more response to things that have already happened rather than what's actually happening right now. I know myself. So I think awareness about knowing yourself and how you respond to things is crucial, because then I don't want to call it overreacting, because the emotions are real. Even they might be exasperated or magnified, but they're still real. Whatever it is that you're feeling still feels very real. And if you're having specific thoughts, like your conscious mind knows that it's not happening right now, but your subconscious mind does not. It has no concept of time whatsoever. So, a lot of things can feel real to a person, even if it's from past thoughts or emotions. And I think that mindfulness of knowing that that's a really big possibility helps in dealing with the present moment and kind of reeling it in and being able to take a deep breath and knowing that your reaction that you're about to do is probably an overreaction. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes total sense. I work with a lot of people. I do a lot of coaching, and when I coach people that have experienced trauma or whatever it is that they're going through, I always tell them, imagine our relationship as coach and client as me asking you all the questions that your subconscious and conscious brain doesn't want you to answer. And I ask these people, they want to do something this way, they want to act this way. And I'm, as a coach or even as a hypnotherapist, we're there to kind of question those, immediate responses. Because a lot of times with PTSD, the immediate response, the immediate emotional response, that's probably not the best response you can have in that moment. So the most important thing I've learned is this stuff that we call the power of the pause. How do we fine tune that? How do I get to a pause moment in the midst of chaos and disorder and everyone and their mom trying to make me feel every sort of different way that I'm not trying to feel right now? How do I take that? How do I take a power of the pause, and how do I get that to help me not ride the emotional the tidal wave? Does that mean, because I think they're tied together. We can pause and it helps us not get on that wave. So talk to me about that. What does that look like for you, and what can that look like for other people?
I think when you're not practicing the pause, like you said, people tend to be very reactive, and that's not a good place to be in any aspect of life, to be reactive, unless it's like you're in fight, flight, or freeze and you're reacting to save your life. That's a different matter. But generally speaking, in day-to-day life, being reactive like that, it generally has a lot of negative effects. And I would say a good tip for a beginner who's trying to learn how to practice the pause, because it takes a lot of mindfulness and remembering, like when you're in a moment and you're like having all these thoughts and all this chaos, it's really challenging to just not do what you always done, which is react. So I think a good tip for like a newbie who's trying to learn how to practice the pause, you can wear like a rubber band or a hair tie around your wrist. And whenever you feel overwhelmed, snap that rubber band, and it's going to bring you back into this present moment, because all that chaos that's happening in your head is not the present moment. It's stuff from back there and over here and maybe fear of the future, whatever. You're not living in the present moment when you have all that chaos going on. So snap that rubber band, and it's going to immediately bring you back into this present moment. And that's when you say, I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to practice the pause.
That's, it's interesting that you say that. And I guess I've learned that technique before, but I totally forgot about it. And a lot of times I use the grounding, like 5 things I can see, 5 things I can hear. I like that because it's as simple as, I have a bracelet that I wear or something that snaps a little bit, rubber band or something. And that's true. It can give you a real jolt out of that situation. So I like that concept there. And I think that will work, and if it, and again, I always tell people with trauma and all these symptoms, depression, anxiety, whatever it is, even if you don't have PTSD and you severely suffer from depression, where it's like, I know I'm happy about my life, but I can't feel physically happy about it. It's a crazy phenomenon depression's a whole nother whirlwind that I'd love to go into, with you at another time. You've been an awesome guest. Why don't you tell people where they can find you at? And if you're going to be doing some more videos from what I've heard, and you're excited about kind of sharing more tips and more tools about, that can help other people. Is that true? Or where do you think are we going to see more Audra Rene Weeks videos? And where should we go to find them for right now?
So you can find me on Facebook at Audra Rene Weeks. And I have that same for Instagram at Audra Rene Weeks. I also have a Facebook page called Evolutionary Integrative Therapy, where I post a lot of mental health stuff. I post all the podcasts that I'm on, any videos that I'm on is always on my Facebook. So you can see what I'm doing on there, and you definitely are going to see a lot more of me. I'm on a mission to try to spare other people the pain that I've gone through with experiencing so much trauma. So if I can be a light to somebody else and spare them of some of that pain that I've experienced, I'm all in.
No, I really appreciate that. And I think it's commendable work that you're about to embark on with this journey. There is so much to be said for being in a place as a trauma survivor and being able to share those triumphs and those winning moments that you had. And when we work together in the collective, and we as humans, as your group of family members, when you really truly start to understand what it is that you went through and what you can do to overcome, and you're able to share that with other people, there's some people that are in a place so much worse, or maybe where you once were, that we could expedite and fast track that healing process almost, so they don't have to struggle in the same things. That's pretty much what kind of the point you're making is, if I share my stuff, it's going to help the next person not, get down that rabbit hole 7 times. They might only go down the rabbit hole 2 times. And if more and more people start doing this and being open about, I was an alcoholic and I'm sober now. I was an addict of heroin and I don't do that anymore. I experienced this trauma and I overcame it because I used EMDR therapy. I used hypnotherapy. I used CBT. I used this, whatever it may be. When we come together, we can experience a collective consciousness of information that fast tracks the healing. And I think that's an amazing thing that you want to be a part of. We don't have time to go into the hypnotherapy tonight, but what I want to do before I let you go is, will you come back and talk to us just about hypnotherapy and what that can be used for?
Absolutely.
Oh, sweet. That's so awesome. Well, Audra, thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for sharing the insight and wisdom you have as a trauma survivor, a certified hypnotherapist. And I really, really want to help you in any way that we can from Help Me PTSD. Make sure that your message is getting out and that people know the resources that they have available to them when they're in a bad place. So, Audra, thank you so much for being on our show. And again, you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to possibly help somebody else.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too.
Well, guys, that wraps up our show for tonight. This was a great interview. I can't even think about how awesome this was. We're going to bring more people on. If you want to get on this show, you have something to share. You're a trauma survivor, a practitioner, a mental health expert. I want you. I want to talk to you. I want to see what your opinions are, what your knowledge is. We got to help the world heal, and that's what Help Me PTSD is here to do. So again, I want to bring these up. 22 vets each day, 107 firefighters, one every other 2 days, 228 cops each year. That's one every other day. These are the things that we're trying to stop, guys. This is the things that we're trying to help reduce. So, one of the things I want you guys to know is you can go to www.helpmeptsd.com. You can go there. If you're a provider, you can sign up to be a member, okay? You can take the pledge to end the 22 veteran suicides every day. You can take the pledge as a Help Me PTSD member to be a action instead of a bypassing not involved. It's your choice. We just want to be part of the solution, and we want you to be a part of the solution with us. So, without anything else going on tonight, I hope you guys have a great evening. I hope you guys are staying safe. Get some rest. Hopefully this virus stuff will be over soon, and we'll see you on Thursday with some more amazing guests, Kirk Nurmi and Kayla Antisevich. We're going to talk about addiction. We're going to talk about trauma. We're going to talk about the legal aspect and how lawyers even are impacted by some of the biggest cases they've had, and leaves them in a mental place where it might not be so great to be. So we've got Kirk Nurmi, the Jodi Arias attorney, the original Jodi Arias attorney. He's going to come on and talk to us about some trauma. And again, we got some great shows coming up, guys. So give us a subscribe, hit the button if you're watching on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, share and like and give to your friends. And again, remember, accounts at Help Me PTSD are always free. For clients, we don't have memberships. You go, you find the person you need, and you pay them for what they say their prices are. It's that simple. We don't ever do membership fees. Accounts are always free. We just want you to get the help you need. Okay, guys? So again, helpmeptsd.com. We are the solution for mental health and wellness. My name is Christopher Lengel. I'm the CEO and founder of Help Me PTSD. Again, hope you guys have a good night, and we will see you next time.